I'm Cyrus Webb, president of Shadowplay Entertainment, Conversations Book Club, and the host of the literary show The Right Stuff. A National Day of Reading is Saturday, November 21st, 2009. For kids, reading their own writing can be the ultimate reading experience. It's empowering, it's relevant, and interesting to the reader, and it's a chance to be heard without interruption. This is a message to anyone working on programming for children between the ages of 4 and 12 years old who would be interested in a creative writing activity, allowing kids to write what they read. Please contact Think It, Ink It Publishing. Think It, Ink It offers professionally illustrated wordless picture books in which kids write the story and become the author. Think It, Ink It Publishing would love to partner with all of the powerful literary motivators out there bringing the gift of literacy to children. Go to www.thinkitinkittpublishing.com and check out what we have to offer. And email us if you would like to talk further. Thank you so much for your support, and we look forward to working together to bring the joy of literacy to many. We continue with part 2 of my conversation with best-selling authors Jerry Jenkins, Evie Rhodes, L.A. Banks, and Jewell Parker Rhodes as they discuss faith and literature. I ask you the same question. Yellow Moon, I think, is definitely a great mixture of what is factual, what is myth, and also the I guess you would say the paranormal as well. For you, though, how has your personal faith affected what you've been writing, especially when it does come to the issue of voodoo?
You know, it's really interesting because my grandpa was a AME Methodist minister, and so we always went to church, and, you know, that was Christianity was a big part of our lives. But my grandmother, I think, was, you know, a woman who'd come up from Georgia and was really, you know, a conjure woman, and she taught me a lot of values that have to do with really our descendants, you know, from slavery, you know, going all the way back to Africa. And so Grandma would always say, do good and it'll fly right back to you, which is really, you know, the Christian golden rule. So for me, I think even though right now I'm not, you know, I don't attend an organized church, I think I live a spiritual life, and that I'm trying to live a good life, and I'm also trying to blend, you know, the sort of the folk culture of African American people's African-based spirituality with Christianity. And so in Yellow Moon, it's that question of, you know, what is faith? In LA, I got a vampire too, but it's a different vampire than your vampire girl. But but I deal with vampires and good and evil. But I really am very much into personal affirmation and the idea that I think, you know, God, the Spirit, whatever, you know, you believe in, you know, the idea that I do believe that I can be touched by grace. I do believe that the spirit world is accessible to me. I do believe my loved ones who are dead are still accessible to me. And I do believe that everything in this world, you know, animate and inanimate, has a spiritual value. So learning how, me personally, how to live a good life, and then how that touches my family and how that touches my community, I think is being my spiritual journey. And that's what I write about my characters, how to do good in this world. And for me, one of the greatest gifts from, in particular, African-based spirituality is that notion of forgiveness, and Christianity has that as well. But in African-based spirituality, very often the gods, you know, aren't, you know, really, you know, they're very much more human, more like mythic creatures. And for me, that really works, because every single day, I got to tell you, I mess up every single day. And one of the things that keeps me going is that big, you know, forgiveness word, you know, that it's okay, but I am human, and it's the striving towards being the best that I can do and being spiritual and doing good in the world, and I do good through my writing. But if I mess up, pick myself up and keep going. And I think that sense of moving on and keep going and still doing your best is really the nature of being a human being. If I were truly, you know, blessed person or a saint or something like that, maybe everything would come easy. I have no idea. But I think that the spiritual world has it so that it's not so much that you always succeed, it's that your heart is willing and you give everything you've got. And even when you seem to do wrong and you fall down and get on your knees, you pick yourself up and you try again. So I'm never going to stop trying to live a good life and talk about that in my work.
Okay. All right. Great point. And, Evie, I think that ties right into the same question to you, but I have to say that I've read all of your titles except for the newest one. I haven't read Street Vengeance, but I love the last book, The Forgotten Spirit, and I think it touches on a lot of things that Jewell just mentioned, and especially since The Forgotten Spirit is so geared around the holiday time. I have to ask you the same question. What role has your faith played in the things that you've written, because you also are another author that's diverse?
Yes, Cyrus, you're absolutely right. Jesus Christ has played a major role in my life, in my writing. And I think, as you said, having read the titles, all of my titles reflect that to some degree. The Forgotten Spirit, in particular, was a story that I really felt needed to be done because it needed to, we needed to get back the spirit of Christmas, so to speak. My life was impacted because I spent some time studying the four Gospels, and Jesus Christ became a hero, so to speak, for me, and a mentor. And I looked at the spiritual aspects of his life as well as the life that he lived when he was here, and I thought, wow, this is a really, awesome person, really awesome spirit. I mean, just everything about him, his persona, and what he did in the Gospels, just really floored me when I just started taking it apart and doing a study of the history. And that has certainly impacted my writing, my way of living, and how I interact that in my writing and themes, and incorporate that into my stories 1,000%.
Panel, I want to go ahead to my next question, and just really picking up on what all of you have said thus far, and also since I've read all of work by all of you, I want to know about this fight for good against evil. Now, do you think, and I'm going to ask the question first and then I'll call on you individually, do you think that good and evil, that most people now are starting to realize and see evil as something that is more tangible instead of something that just might be festered within an individual person? I'll ask that question first of all to Jewell.
Cyrus, your questions are always so terrific. I do think that, evil has a spiritual component, but it does seem to me that it's more tangible, and maybe it always was. I think right now our nation, the world, is at a particular crossroads of really hate manifesting itself in very negative ways, whether it's the bombings in Mumbai or, a murder in the streets of L.A. And I think that tangibleness, though, comes from the lack of the good, the lack of the affirmation. And so, whether we go to a church or go to ourselves or go to a sunset or go to the Bible, I think more than ever I feel as though we're all searching for a spiritual sustenance. And so that if we fed ourselves on good words and good deeds, that evil then might be approaching more the concept and less tangible. But I do think something is awry with the world, because I think something's awry with the human spirit in terms of consumerism, in terms of, me first, the narcissism. And I think it's the generosity in giving and forgiveness and being at peace with oneself in the world that we're called to do. And if anything else, that's part of what defeats this tangible evil.